Hello everyone and welcome back to the garden. After the long quiet of winter, something magical begins to happen. Almost overnight, the garden wakes up. Little shoots appear, buds begin to open, and suddenly colour returns to the borders. Spring flowers don't just bring beauty, they bring the feeling that the garden is alive again. Today, I want to share 10 of the most beautiful spring flowers that wake the garden after winter, along with a few stories and traditions that surround them. Let's begin with one of the very first flowers to appear. Snowdrops are often the first promise of spring. These delicate white flowers sometimes appear while frost still touches the ground. In many parts of Britain, they were once called Candlemas bells because they bloom around early February. Despite their fragile appearance, snowdrops are surprisingly tough. They quietly spread through gardens and woodlands, forming beautiful white drifts year after year. And when you see them, it's always like the garden is whispering, "Spring is coming." Soon after the snowdrops come the crocuses. These jewel-like flowers open wide in sunshine, revealing bright golden centres. Crocuses are loved not only by gardeners, but by early bees who depend on them for nectar after the cold winter. There's also a fascinating connection to history here. Saffron, one of the most valuable spices in the world, comes from a species of crocus. So these small flowers carry quite an extraordinary story. Few flowers capture the joy of spring quite like daffodils. Their bright yellow trumpets seem to bring sunshine into the garden. They're also one of the most reliable spring flowers. Plant the bulbs once and they often return for many years to come. Daffodils have inspired poets, artists and gardeners for centuries. And when large drifts of them appear across a lawn or a border, it feels like the whole garden is celebrating the arrival of spring. Tulips arrive slightly later in spring, and when they do, they bring extraordinary colour. There are thousands of varieties, from simple elegant cups to dramatic double flowers that look almost like peonies. Tulips also have one of the most fascinating stories in garden history. In the 1600s in the Netherlands, tulip bulbs became so valuable that they sparked a phenomenon known as tulip mania, one of the earliest financial bubbles in history. Today, thankfully, we can simply enjoy them for the beauty in the garden. Hyacinths are famous for something many flowers don't have, an incredible fragrance. Just a few plants can fill an entire area of the garden with scent. Their dense spikes of the flowers also add wonderful structure to the spring planting. In Victorian flower language, hyacinths were symbols of playfulness and sincerity, making them popular gifts and garden plants alike. Primroses feel deeply connected to the British countryside. Their soft yellow flowers often appear along woodland paths, hedgerows and shady corners of the garden. The name primrose comes from the Latin prima rosa, meaning the first rose. For centuries they've been linked to folklore and to spring festivals, and in cottage gardens they bring a gentle, natural beauty that feels timeless. Bluebells create one of the most magical sights in the spring garden and countryside. When they appear in woodland, they form vast carpets of violet blue flowers beneath the trees. In folklore, bluebells were sometimes associated with fairy magic, and people believed they should never be picked. Standing among them in spring, it's easy to see why they inspired so many stories. Wallflowers are one of the most traditional spring bedding plants. They're loved for their warm colours, oranges, purples, yellows and reds, and their sweet fragrance as well. In cottage gardens they pair beautifully with tulips and other spring bulbs, creating colourful displays that last for weeks. And despite their humble name, wallflowers are anything but shy in the garden. Magnolia trees produce some of the most dramatic flowers of spring. Their huge blossoms open on bare branches before the leaves appear. And magnolias are also incredibly ancient plants. Fossils show that magnolia flowers existed millions of years before bees and were originally pollinated by beetles. When a magnolia tree blooms, it becomes one of the true highlights of the spring garden. Spring flowers remind us that gardens move in cycles. After months of quiet, life slowly returns, first with the snowdrops, then the crocuses, then waves of colour from the bulbs, trees and woodland flowers. Each one feels like a small celebration of the season. And every year, no matter how many times we see them, the first burst of spring colour always feels a little magical. Thank you so much for joining me in the garden today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know which spring flower is your favourite. And I'll see you again soon. And welcome to the Bear in the Garden channel.